Have you ever had success in an area of your life or where things were just going well and then something happened that derailed you or kind of threw you off track? Have you ever had that experience and wondered, what is going on? Is there something wrong with me? Why can't I push through this glass ceiling? Or it seems like there's this ceiling that I just can't break through. If you reflect back on your life, it's likely you've got an area like that where you continue to grow and then something happens and brings you back down. I want to introduce this concept of the glass ceiling or an internal thermostat that's likely holding you back and cover some of the ways that we self-sabotage and get in our own way of progress.
Welcome back to the Jesus Coffee Yoga podcast, where we sit down with yoga teachers just like you and we discuss all things yoga, business, a little bit of coffee, and Jesus, and how to empower ourselves with the tools that we need to live the life that we are designed to live.
Grab a tasty beverage, grab a chair, and let's chat.
I have my tasty beverage right here.
What do you
I'll
got?
tell you what I'm drinking. I am drinking my post-workout supplements. So it's like my electrolytes and things like that. And fun fact about me, for those of you watching, you can see this cup. Every retreat that I lead, I always have like a theme and I always get a cup to take to retreat with me. And this one is from our Made New retreat. And it was a bunch of little rainbows. That was kind of like the theme throughout. But I'm also drinking my mushroom coffee. I'm almost done with it. So I've got multiple beverages today. What are you drinking?
All right, so I got the bag with me. Yeah, it's from Ethiopia. I don't know how to pronounce it. Kuve is the brand. Yeah, it's an Ethiopian one. It's good. It's fruity and wild.
Fruity and ooh,
And it does taste fruity. I'm not sure how to describe what wild would taste like.
Do you
To me, that conjures up things I don't want, like wild, like dirt.
No, that makes me excited. I'm like, wild. I want some of that. I think of like wild berries or wild flowers or wild horses.
Oh, I mean, I wouldn't want it to taste like a horse, but I'm kind of thinking like wild, like it would taste like I found it in the woods, like dirt and sticks and stuff, bark.
Does it taste like that?
No, it tastes fruity and good.
Berries, like wild berries, yeah. Well, I'm glad one of us drinks coffee.
Well, and it's actually something I'm considering cutting out for a while.
What?
I truly believe. I know. I've been struggling with this for months. Feeling led, probably led. I don't know. I don't want to over spiritualize it, but this is an area that I have not gone away from coffee in ever since college.
I literally met you in our church lobby getting coffee, like in the middle of the lobby. You were getting coffee. That was the first time I met you, and I don't know uncoffeed Nick. So y'all pray for us.
I don't know uncoffeed Nick.
Yeah. Oh,
but I'm just really in diving into health. You know, I work with a functional medicine expert who's helped me do blood work and just try to optimize my life and feel the best that I can. And he is saying, like, you really should cycle everything, like everything.
I agree with that.
And I have not cycled off coffee and really caffeine since college. So I should probably do that. But all right. Let's move into this episode.
We're both feeling pretty fired up about this when we were writing out the content for this. I think it's going to be hopefully really powerful for some people, myself included.
Yeah, and this is an area both of us. I don't want to say struggled, but I think everyone struggles with this, whether you know it or not. There's this thing inside us that, as we start to do new things, or like maybe try to change something in our life, that often can get in the way and hold us back, or we're making progress, we're moving forward, and then something happens that always brings us back down. And there's a lot of stuff at play, but a lot of it revolves around our mindset and limiting beliefs and maybe some lies that we're believing about ourselves. And I want to introduce this concept of this internal thermostat. So if you picture a thermostat, let's say, and in this example, let's say the warmer the better. So if you don't like to sweat, just forget that for a little bit for the sake of this example. Let's say that success in any area, whatever area it is, could be in your relationships, in your job and money, just in any area, your fitness, that, you know, the hotter the better. And maybe your life right now, you're at kind of like 70 degrees. And if you're in Celsius, I'm sorry, do some conversions. There's some tools out there to convert. So let's say like 70 degrees is kind of like your normal. And when things start heating up, like you're starting to make progress in your fitness, things are getting a little better. You're hitting that 80 degrees, like you're feeling good. Something happens. Maybe you get injured. Maybe you get sick. Maybe life just got super busy, but something happened that kind of knocked you off your routine and you brought you back down to that 70 degrees. Or maybe like you're comfortable at that 70, but for some reason your health is slipping and you're kind of going down. You're at like 60 degrees, 50 degrees, like some major health thing pops up, like snaps you out of it, brings you back up. I'm gonna get healthy. I'm gonna eat better. It brings you back up to that 70. But instead of keeping going past that, you might hit a point and you're like, bring it back down to 70. There's this concept of this thermostat of like, the AC or the heat kind of keeps on to keep you at your comfort level. And in order to grow in any area of your life, you've got to crank that thermostat up and you've got to start increasing the heat on that to get you that next level. And like it'll kind of be this constant ebb and flow of maybe your next target is 80 degrees and you've kind of bounced around that 80 and then it's time to increase that 90. So there's some ways we can increase that and we'll discuss that later in the episode. But just think about this concept and look back on your life. Like, does this ring true? Is there an area where it seems like you just can't break through this glass ceiling? There's this thing you keep like hitting and bringing you back down. And I would say probably there is. And if there isn't, maybe it's time to spend some more time in reflection and really be honest with yourself. Like, where have I seen this in my life?
I want to kind of interject here. I love this idea. I remember when you introduced it to I think it was our Next Steps yoga teacher program after certification program. It was really powerful for me. And it made me think of when I started doing hot yoga. Like, for those of you that don't do hot yoga, maybe try it if it's okay for your health. But when I first started doing hot yoga, prior to that, I used to dread, I hated summer, hated it. I was so uncomfortable. I did not want to, like, I avoided summer in every way that I could. But when I started doing hot yoga, I remember that it was kind of in the spring, maybe like Mayish into the summer. And I was doing hot yoga once or twice a week, just as part of like because I was running a lot back then. It was just like my extra like cross training. And honestly, that's where I like fell in love with yoga. But I remember walking out of a hot yoga class, which it's not just hot, y'all. It's like, it's like 110 degrees in there. It's the infrared, so it's heating you from the inside out. I remember walking out like sometime in July, and here in Oklahoma, July is crazy. Like triple digits, multiple weeks at a time, that situation. Walking out and being like, it doesn't feel so bad out here. Like, I remember having that thought. Like, I remember exactly where I was. I remember what I was wearing. My husband was with me. And I just remember being like, the summer heat that normally makes me like anxious and like frustrated and like a little bit of like seasonal depression, even maybe, like, I remember it feeling not so bad because I had just been training my body in a 115-degree room. And this doesn't feel so hard. And so I love this idea of the thermostat because I then reframed the way I looked at summer. Like, if I can train my body in 100+ degree room a couple times a week, I can manage summer, right? So like it's kind of that same. So now 90 degrees feels cool to me, but I had to consistently show up to these hot classes. And I think that this can show up, like you said, in not just in our business. We are going to talk about how this looks in your business, how it looks in my business. I had an epiphany, like, or just like a God moment just within the last couple of days where I recognize, and I think the reason we call it a glass ceiling, I don't know this to be true. The reason I call it a glass ceiling is because we can't see it. Like, it's clear, it's invisible. We're like, boom, I don't know what's happening. I don't know what's happening. And then we start to go back down to that 70 degrees. You know why? It's comfortable. Like, because 70 degrees is comfortable. Like, there's a reason people live in California where it's sunny and 75 all year round because it's comfortable. And so I recognize this is where I'm reaching for my dysfunctional, tattered comfort security blanket that literally doesn't keep me warm. It's just known, but it's not functional, right? Like, this blanket is not keeping me warm. So, but I want it because that's what I've known and I've had it for so long. So I'm really excited about this conversation, and we're going to hopefully help you guys identify where your glass ceiling might be. And again, I think this happens at every level. Like, I think I'm feeling a glass ceiling, And I'm going to share ways that I have chosen to say, you know what, this is it. This is where I start shrinking. This is where I start self-sabotaging. I don't even know I'm doing it. Like I just do it like subconsciously almost. But this time I'm making a different choice. I'm going to keep pushing forward. I'm like, where's my hammer? We going to break through this. Like the way that, like, I think each time you come to that ceiling, hopefully you get more aware of it. And then you have the tools, you have the hammer ready to go. So that's what we want to teach you guys today.
So you might be wondering, like, why would we do this? And I think there's several reasons. One would be just feeling like you're not worth it. Like you're not worthy of the effort. Maybe you're not worthy of having that thing, whatever that is, and you're kind of comfortable in that dysfunction. Like you're used to like being at this level of dysfunction, and it's known and it's comfortable, even though that it's dysfunctional. There's this story I've heard. I don't think it's a true story, but it's an analogy that there was this old man on his front porch sitting with his dog, and the dog is like whining and like, like you can tell the dog is in pain. And this guy was walking by and he's like, "Dude, what's wrong with your dog?" I said, "Oh, he's sitting on a nail." Well, why doesn't he get off the nail? Like, because it'll hurt more. That moment of like getting off the nail is going to hurt more than it currently hurts right now. Even though it hurts right now, he knows that when he moves, it's going to hurt even more. Even though getting off that nail will lead to healing and the pain will go away eventually, he's afraid to move because it's going to hurt a little bit more than it hurts right now. And I think that's a very common feeling too, of just feeling like it's maybe life is hard right now, but I know it's going to be harder to change. And so I'm just comfortable with how things are right now. I think there's also a fear of failure. Sometimes we're afraid of trying and not getting there. What if I try and I fail? And also a fear of success. And this one sounds really weird, but it's a thing. What if I do this and I succeed and I'm not sure I can handle it?
Yeah, this one is kind of a weird one, but it's truly like the fear of the unknown. Because if you've never been successful in something, one, you don't know if you have what it takes to be that, right? Like if I'm successful in my business, I've never been more successful in my business than I am right now, for me, anyways. So I don't know there's this sense of like unknown. Like, can I even be a successful person, right? Like, can I manage this success? Can I be who I need to be? And so I think it's really just also like a fear of the unknown. Like, can I handle what it might be? And I think another one is just like that it's just hard. Like it's too hard, or I'm not strong enough or smart enough or whatever enough to do this work because it's hard.
Yeah, and I think sometimes too we tell ourselves lies or these stories that aren't true. Again, we don't have the experience. We're just assuming, or maybe even we're just using them as an excuse to stay safe and to stay in our comfort zone. So that could be something like more money, more problems, which I believe is a lie, and I think we do an episode just on that concept. But what are those stories that you're telling yourself that's making you feel better about staying where you're at instead of striving for the next thing, the next level?
Yeah, because the truth is, we are all telling ourselves stories all day long. So, I wanted to share this scripture that many of us are probably very familiar with. And I want to share it in a different translation as well, because it kind of goes along with we get to choose like how we're going to think about whatever it is. So, like, we get to choose what we think of failure. I don't think failure is wrong. I think failure is learning. I think failure is getting stronger. We get to choose how we're going to think of that. And so, in 2 Corinthians 10, verse 5, the NLT version says, "We destroy every proud obstacle that keeps people from knowing God. We capture their rebellious thoughts and teach them to obey Christ." I mean, he's literally saying, like, you get to choose. And I told my kid this yesterday. You get to choose what thoughts you allow to take up residence in your mind. You can't always choose what comes to your mind, but you do get to choose what you're going to do with that thought. And so I love the other scripture or the other version. It's the Message version of this same text. It is actually 2 Corinthians 10, 3 through 6. It's a little bit longer, but I liked it for where we're going with this episode. It says, "The world is unprincipled. It's dog eat dog out there. The world doesn't fight fair, but we don't live or fight our battles that way. Never have, never will. The tools of our trade aren't for marketing or manipulation, but they are for demolishing that entire massively corrupt culture. We use our powerful God tools for smashing warped philosophies and tearing down barriers erected against the truth of God, fitting every loose thought and emotion and impulse into the structure of the life shaped by Christ. Our tools are ready at hand for clearing the ground in every obstruction and building the lives of obedience into maturity. I love that version for especially for what we're talking about today. Like I said, like I have this like proverbial hammer. Like this scripture is literally saying like you have the tools to do the work even that God has called you to do, right? And we have to choose. And I also love that the scripture went into saying every loose thought, emotion, and impulse. Like our thoughts, our feelings, and even like our impulses are not fact. We have to choose what is truth and what are lies.
Yeah. Feelings are not fact.
They're valid, but they are not fact.
I like this analogy of thinking like thoughts are like clouds floating by. That you'll have a thought pass through and acknowledge it, like, that's an interesting thought, and then let it go like a cloud passing by on a partially cloudy day. You don't have to, like, you get to choose which thoughts you're gonna allow to like stick with you and ruminate on. And that's powerful. A lot of times we pick the wrong thoughts to dwell on, and we have that freedom and ability to let those go like a cloud passing by.
But I think sometimes it's hard for us to embrace. I mean, that's Bible. Like what you just said is Bible. Like we get to choose what we allow to take up space in our mind, right? But I think sometimes, like if we're just being like gross gut level honest with ourselves, we don't want to be held responsible for what we choose to keep. Because now, if I'm thinking the truth is I am called to do these things, God will equip me. Now that requires me to stand in the faith that God's going to give me the strength and the people and all the things. And that's really scary. Like I now have to own this if I'm living this out and I'm saying, okay, God, you said to go do these things and I'm going to go do these things. But now I'm accountable to doing that if I want to honor and accept and embrace the truth of that. So it comes with like that freedom comes with a responsibility, like to do the things that we're called to do or say we're going to do.
There was something that you said, or I think I said, and you were like, yes, the tension, to pay attention to the tension. And I forget how I said it that it came out, but I wanted you to talk a little bit on that concept and what thoughts were spurred when I said that.
Yeah, pay attention. Andy Stanley, I remember a long time ago in one of his leadership podcasts, he said, pay attention to the tension. So when let's use like fitness, just because all of us are in this fitness space or doing our own fitness work, when we feel that burn in our muscles or like the muscles start to shake, that's the tension. What we want to do is stay there in that tension to become stronger. We're literally tearing our muscle fibers, right? So we're going to choose to make the decision to either keep going or pull back, right? So pay attention to the tension and don't let it own you. So tension is not bad, right? Like pain, not all pain is bad. Hard is not bad, but the way that we have truly like just made it like this enemy in our mind because our culture says streamline everything for your preference and your convenience, right? We have this when we feel tension, we automatically think bad. We automatically think this is hard, bad. Like, I don't think I have what it takes, bad. Like, all like, so pay attention to that tension. Just like if you are working out, if you're lifting, I'm doing a lot of lifting right now. So it's real fresh for me, but like lifting heavier creates a moment in my mind where I decide, am I going to drop this bar and let it roll off my back? Or am I going to stand back up? And I have to go there in my mind first. And so once I recognize this is my max, I'm going to push through it. And then after weeks of continuing to do this work, I'm going to come back under that same weight and say, okay, like this is easier. Well, it's not easier. I just got stronger, right? Those muscle fibers came back and healed and came back. My muscles are stronger now. And the same thing is true about whatever it is you're doing. So in your business, as you're starting to look at what's my next step, man, that's a lot of work. I don't think I'm not really, that's not my lane. I don't know what I'm doing. Somebody knows what they're doing that you can reach out to for help or to hire or whatever that is. when you feel that tension, right? So definitely pay attention to the tension and let's not demonize it.
Yeah, and I think there's a lie or a limiting belief around that, that if something's hard, that it's that you're in the wrong. And I would say no. If it's not hard, maybe you're in the wrong if it's not hard. You know, are you seeking comfort over, like you said, over peace? Actually, I don't think you've even said that yet, but that was something you said to me as we were prepping this. Like, are you seeking comfort or are you seeking peace? And that
Right.
it's not the same thing.
They are not the same thing. I think all of us are seeking peace. If we'll just and serenity maybe, like just that sense of peace that we can only truly get through Jesus. And I think we settle for comfort. And I think comfort is what keeps us contorted into whatever dysfunction that we're in, or just playing safe. Like always wondering what else is out there. What else could I be doing? How could I be more fulfilled? How could I be reaching more people? I think that comfort is just a mask for what we truly want, which is peace.
Yeah, and I think too, there's an element of just being lazy. If we're all being honest, and I think it looks different for different people. There are some people who, when it comes to fitness, they can push themselves so hard. And I sometimes envy that in someone because that's been a struggle for me at times. Like, it's hard for me to push without a coach or someone like pushing me. It's hard for me to do that. And I've seen others who are just so disciplined in that area and can push themselves so hard. But in other areas of their life, they lack that in areas where I'm stronger. There are ways that I can push myself really hard and keep going. I have a really high pain tolerance in some ways that is an asset in some situations that becomes a liability when I take it too far. But where I'm bringing it back to this point is that a lot of times we are being lazy because something's hard. Like, this is going to require hard work. And what I think we need to see is that it's actually that hard work that gets us the comfort that we're seeking. We kind of seek these temporary, um, like not really the surface level comfort. You know, really, like you said, we're seeking peace, and that the peace only comes when we do the hard work. Like, you do the hard work first, and then we get the result. And I had this analogy that it's kind of like this. There's this tax we have to pay. So we want this feeling of ease or comfort or peace, and when we pay the tax, when we do the hard work, then we get the result. But it's a tax that's not like one time. In your fitness, you can't just work out once and get to a certain level of fitness and then you're there forever. There's some maintenance required with that. And so ongoing, this at every level you get to, there's going to be a little bit more required of you. But like you said, it's like building a muscle. It's not like it's every time it's going to feel that much more harder. It's just your ability to do more grows, and over time you can just handle more stuff.
Yeah, and you just keep putting weight on your bar or your proverbial bar, if you will, like even in your work. And so I think here, Nick, the limiting belief, like we're talking about, what is a limiting belief, or the lie, is that it should be easy, that we should be comfortable, and like that things shouldn't be hard. And that's just truly a limiting belief or a lie. And I think the quicker we can come face to face with this lie, expose it for what it is, and then choose how we're going to reframe our own mind and thoughts around it and how we're going to approach it, I think the quicker that we get unstuck or we break through this lie or this limited belief.
Yeah, and even just to add onto that, that similarly, if I have problems, that I'm in the wrong, that like I must not have it right if I'm still experiencing problems. And no, I would say problems are really just opportunities. And I've said this to you and other people, that our business will grow to the level of problem that we are willing to take on. And the problems never go away; they just change. And don't let it scare you. You know, like, you will always have problems. It's just that's just a part of life. The problems you're willing to take on head on and just fix and solve, that will elevate you in your business. And as you keep doing that, you're introduced to new problems. And even as you see success, a lot of times that part of that process is now introducing you to new problems, or let's call them opportunities, ways that you get to grow and develop.
Yeah, and I think the more that you practice this, because it is a practice, right? Like you're making your mind stronger. You're sending your mind to the gym. And the more that you kind of like equip yourself with the strength and the tools and all the things that you need to do, the less overwhelming the challenges or the problems, or the reframe is the opportunities you face will be, because they will not disappear. Like, you are 100% facts in that. Like, they're not going away. And so instead of saying, like, we've kind of used the term loosely, like more money, more problems. It's really more money, less problems in some ways, and more things to learn and manage along the way. So for me, like when you said that, I think it was on a call. I don't even remember where you said it, but I think it was in one of our coaching sessions. You said, can we say it again? Like the level you'll only grow is to the level of.
Your business will grow to the level of problem that you're willing to take on.
And like, I've heard that in several things that I'm learning. So for those of you that are caught up on episodes, I'm in this season of learning new things for my personal brand and my business, how to email and how to change communication styles and how to build a team and all of these things that I'm doing for the first time on my own. It feels very challenging, but as I've kind of processed that statement, I'm like, this is just another thing to learn. And I've just softened my mind around it. So, yoga teachers, we do this in class all the time. Like, you put somebody in, I don't know, warrior 3 or a high lunge for 10 breaths. You're going to have to coach them through how to, like, we can feel two things at one time, right? Like, I can feel the burning in my body. I can feel the sweat dripping. I can feel the shaking of my muscles. I can feel all of those things, but I'm going to choose in this moment to anchor my heart or my mind to what is true, what is good. I'm strong enough to do this. I can do this. I will do this. Like, and you're coaching them through those moments. That was one of those things that kind of coached me through some of the current opportunities that I have been given as I am growing my reach and my community.
So we do want to give you some practical things like, where do we go from here? What do we do with this? But before that, I just want to touch on one other concept that I think I have mentioned before that we haven't done an episode on yet that we probably should. That overwhelm is a choice. And that sometimes what keeps us stuck or what keeps us from breaking through that glass ceiling is this feeling of overwhelm. And a lot of times we just let this feeling come in and just stop us from moving forward. And the reason I say that overwhelm is a choice is because you're choosing what you're focusing on, kind of like these thoughts and thinking that like the thoughts are like clouds. You're grabbing some of these thoughts and holding on to them and looking at, I'm here and I want to climb Mount Everest. And I'm just staring at Mount Everest thinking, how in the world am I going to do that? And you're looking at just the end goal and letting that stop you from moving forward. When all you really need to do is look at, yeah, like that's the direction I'm headed. I just need to get to this next checkpoint. Like, what do I need to do just to get to this next piece, this next phase? It's a lot less scary when you can break it down into smaller pieces and then just do what you need to do for the next thing. Just take your next step. That's not overwhelming. You're just choosing to focus on the bigger thing that keeps you overwhelmed, keeps you safe.
I was sharing when we were creating this podcast. I was sharing that overwhelm it's a valid feeling, right? Like, I don't want to invalidate like this feeling of feeling overwhelmed. It's what we do beyond that with that is, and what we choose to keep. Remember our scripture, like, we're going to capture them and make them obedient to Christ. Like, I was using the example of when I came home to a flooded house. I didn't choose for my house to flood, right? But I felt overwhelmed, almost numb. Like, well, I don't even know what to do. Like, that was my Mount Everest at that point. Like, I don't even know who to call. I don't know where to start. There's water in my house, like everything. And I remember feeling so overwhelmed. But then I had to, at some point, say, okay, we're just going to make a game plan and we're just going to start knocking it out. You guys, it's been over a year and we still don't have baseboards on in my house. Like it's still not complete. But like, I couldn't just allow that sense of overwhelm to completely take me out and completely take me underwater, because that's not going to get our house fixed. Right. So like, I think the more you can kind of just come to terms with like, okay, what's my very next step? And you start taking that step. So maybe in your business, it looks like crafting your skill, getting someone, if you don't know how to do something, find someone who does. There are people everywhere that need what you need or that have what you need. Right. So just taking that very next step, getting a plan together. And then also, like, the more you do this, the more steps you take, the more confident you become in those skills and the craft, the things that you're crafting, the more empowered you are to move forward with that next step. So like for me, it was just like take the very first step, call my insurance, right? And then it was find out what do we need? Let's assess the situation. What do I need? Okay, I'm going to call this contractor, I'm going to call this, I'm going to get money from here. Like I just broke it down like Nick said in a million different ways, but I wanted to share like just a real life moment where I felt completely overwhelmed and I chose to just keep taking the very next step. And now, if something were to happen in my house, I feel like it would still suck, but like I feel like I wouldn't be bound to that. I wouldn't be in like a emotional or mental chokehold because I now know what to do. Like I've learned this skill of rebuilding my house from ruins or my business even. You guys have heard my story of that. So do remember, like you'll build that confidence as you just continue to take the very next step.
And yeah, actually, we had a similar thing happen in our house where we had a pipe that had freeze damage that we didn't know and had used the hose outside, and we had inches of water in our living room, and kind of the same thing. Like in the moment, I could have just broken down or froze and like, I don't know what to do, so I'm going to do nothing. Instead, I spurred into action and like, all right, let's start looking at like disaster relief. Like there's someone who can help me. Just like, what is this next step? I'm just going to do that one thing. In the moment, I didn't start thinking of all the stuff that had to get done and then getting overwhelmed by that. And this is like a muscle. The more you exercise it, the easier it gets. Not that any of these things we deal with are ever just easy, but the easier it gets to kind of focus your attention on just what is that next step. So I love that.
All right. So what are we going to do? We now know like, hey, as these people are talking to me, I recognize this is my glass ceiling, or these are some lies that I'm believing right now that are truly keeping me held back. So what do we do with that?
I think the very first thing we need to do is exercise this muscle of reflection and thinking. Like you need to be able to recognize this and identify it in your life. And that really only comes when you set aside time to pause, to think and reflect when things happen, and spend some time in prayer and like, God, show me. Like when David would say like wait, what did David say?
He says it twice. Psalm 51, search my heart. But then in Psalm 139, it says, search me, O God, and know my heart. Test me and know my anxious thoughts. Point out anything in me that offends you and lead me along the path of everlasting life. It's Psalm 139, 23 and 24.
Yeah, so definitely pull God into this process, but don't lean too far that way. There are some people that I've worked with that kind of lean more toward that way, and I think again it's a protective mechanism.
It's called spiritual bypassing. Have you ever heard that term?
Uh-uh.
Spiritual bypassing. Yep.
It's just like making an excuse to stay comfortable. Be like, oh, I'm waiting on the Lord, and like there totally is a time for that. But if that tends to be your default, I mean, that's another area for reflection. Do I tend to use that as an excuse? Are you waiting for God to write on the wall, do this exactly? Like he usually doesn't do that. I think I only read once in the Bible where he wrote something on the wall. Like we're we're always wanting this like, God, just tell me what to do and I'll do it. I think he does tell us what to do. We're just not hearing it.
I'm not listening.
Yeah, and training that, and that's something that I pray daily is like, Lord, help me get to know your voice better and differentiate my voice from your voice. But none of that comes without some reflection and thinking, and you just need to get better at recognizing, when am I getting in my own way?
Yeah, yesterday I had an experience where, like I was mentioned earlier, like I found myself at a glass ceiling, and I just like I recognized it and then I released it, like I exposed it, I got it out of my brain and verbalized it, and said, "This is what's happening real time right now." And I thought that was really cool because it's one of those growth moments. It's like all of the mental training, all of the heart training that I've been doing, just in the last couple of months of my life, especially. It just kind of like popped off. It was like, "Hey, this is right now." And that's why I'm so passionate about this episode, because like it was like a real-time moment and just a moment of reflection and verbally processing, saying like, this is it. This is where I would literally start pulling back, even subconsciously. Like I wouldn't even realize I'm doing it. And so what I'm going to do right now is I'm going to make a choice to keep going. I'm going to figure it out along the way. I'm going to do what I need to do.
So everybody's different, but what I find really helpful is to ask the question and journal. I'm not a huge journaler. I kind of wish I was better at it. I'm really inconsistent, but to sit, ask the question. Maybe you're more of a digital person or actual written person, or maybe you're more of a verbal processor. Either way, like whatever that is for you, to ask yourself the question first: am I getting in my own way? Or just start talking out loud and processing, like, what is really going on here? I find that really therapeutic. Or with a friend, maybe it's just a trusted friend. Hey, here's what's going on. I'm trying to figure out, am I getting in my own way? Am I making a bad choice? Just whatever it is, to just process that in a way. Just ask the questions and just get the pen going. And a lot of times the answer will come from that, and it just develops that muscle. To the more you do that, the faster you'll recognize when you're starting to self sabotage.
So that kind of leads us into our second. We're going to recognize those limiting beliefs and glass ceilings and reflect on that. Ask God to sift through our anxious thoughts, and we're going to pull apart anything that is not of Him. The second thing that we recommend is that you decide what your next step needs to be. And this can look like reaching out to friends in this space or someone who's doing it already and you can mentor with them or hire help. This has been like the biggest thing that has changed for me like on a personal level and on a professional level. Hiring someone to help me who knows what they literally are called to do this, and they get paid to do this. And so that has been a game changer for me in my business and in my personal life. My next steps was to find someone who can help me with these things. We have to know what these things are first, right? But get somebody in your corner. And we talk about this a lot, but who can help you see that glass ceiling that you can't see yourself and help you strengthen the muscles to pick up the hammer to break it. I think the third one is just to do it. Like take the next step. Like, so we now recognize where we're being held back or holding ourselves back. We are going to spend some time thinking through our next steps. And now we just need to do it and just be reminded, like, you have what it takes inside of you. Like, God has already put the gifts, the skills, the talents, Himself inside of you to do the work. So do it. It's going to require you to be brave. It's going to require some failure. It's going to require all of you to embrace or to come face to face with all of these things that, we talked about why we would self-sabotage, our worth, our lack of inability, fear of failure, fear of success, the lies, all of that. It's going to take some courage to stand there and look those things in the eye, but you have what it takes to just do it. Like, just get it done. Take your first step. If you go sideways, get back up. And that's just how I operate. Like, just do it.
And don't strive for perfection. I mean, that is a tendency of mine, is like, I want everything I do to be excellent and perfect. And sometimes that holds me back because I don't know what perfect looks like yet. And that can really keep you stuck for a long time. So instead, if you will just build for the season you're in, this is where I am now, and this is like my next thing. Just focus on that, because you can always change it later. So in the Everest example, you are here, Everest is there. Don't worry about the perfect path to get there. Just move forward. And what it's going to look like is a zigzag. You're going to go a little bit and hit a ravine, and then you're going to have to go a different way. And like, that's just part of the process. Move forward, do the next step, and then course correct along the way. So friend, I hope that you found that helpful. And if you're feeling like you're needing a little bit of extra help, one, we offer coaching. There's plenty of coaches out there. Find someone to get help. We also have a program called Next Steps, where we help teachers figure out and take their next step. And based on when you're listening to this, we might be running one right now. We do it live every so often. But if we're not, you can get on the wait list for the next time that we run it. And we might even turn this into a course. We haven't done that yet, but that is an option too. So go to christiansdoyoga.com/next steps and get on that list. And we'll let you know next time that we run it or when it's available. And if you happen to struggle with fear specifically, fear of the unknown, fear of success, fear of failure, just fear in general, we did an episode on fear, and I think you would find that really helpful. So if you haven't listened to that already, or maybe you did and you just need to re-listen, you can click that here and it'll take you to that episode on fear. Thanks for listening. We'll catch you on the next one.